Hello everybody, Loremaster of Sotek here today, and we've got another multiplayer battle, because it is of course Thursday. There is a ton of news to talk about, but we'll do that later this afternoon. I've still got to record. I've got so much shit I got to record today, but we got to keep with our dailies. We got to get our dailies done, as everybody knows. Whenever you play an MMO or anything of that nature, you gotta do your dailies. So, we got one more battle from my bouts with Crumbed, there we go. So, let's go ahead and get into it. So, in this fight, I decided to bring a 10-1 Lizardmen build. So, I've got 4 units for my front line. I've got 4 units of Skink Cohort, led by the Thunderous one, probably the closest thing we'll ever see to a Thunder Lizard in Total War Warhammer. Which I'm okay with. I love the Thunderous one. Then I've got 2 units of Cold One Riders, 2 units of Cold One Spear Riders, 1 to each side, and each contingent is led by a character. This one is led by 10-1, Prophet of Sotek, who is, my favorite character in the game. And I've got Flock of Doom, Amber Spear, and both of my magic items for, heavy, basically character killing and unit weakening. And then leading this contingent, I have a naked Sora Scarvet on a cold one, so he doesn't have any items or any abilities. And then to take the hill on this terrain, I did have 3 units of Chameleon Skinks. As you can see, they're kind of having a bad time right now, because my opponent is also playing a very aggressive force, which real quick to go over before we hop into full motion. Far out on the flank, he's got the Wild Hunters of Kurnos. Then he's got some more Wild Riders with shields, and then there's one over here as well. I think there's 4 units in total of Wild Riders. Maybe there's only 3. I only see 3 right now. But then he's got a unit of Way Watchers on the far flank, and then there's 3 units of Dryads, 2 Forest Dragons, one of which is of course the Glade Lord, and I think this is the male version. No, this is the Glady. So she's got the bow and all those abilities, and then there's a Spellsinger of Life running around on a Elven Steed, and of course some Eternal Garbage Shield. So let's get right into it. So immediately he gets off a counter charge on my Chameleons. I start charging my Cav all up the hills. The Thunderous one slams into combat, which of course he does have very nice anti-infantry and the ability to shoot lightning, which does magic damage, so he'll get through those Dryads in a pinch. Over here, we see a Dragon Breath going down into the Cold One Riders, but they managed to tear through those Dryads really quick, even though they are eating quite a bit of Archer Fire. I'm being supported by Chameleon Skinks as well. Here, I throw down a Flock of Doom to cut through the physical resistance of the Dryads, and this flank, or this center, is pretty much totally collapsed. Really nice Dragon Breath comes in from this Glade Lord here, though they do lose a unit of Wild Riders that get caught in the mess. As you can tell, this battle is going to get fast and furious. Here we see Arrow of Kurnos come down and actually did a lot of damage. But I've got my Chameleon Skinks harassing the dragon, who does come and land on my character. So of course I immediately turn all of my Velociraptors around, and they start hopping all over it like Velociraptors should. Meanwhile, in the center, 10-1 is leading my boys to victory, cutting up these Dryads. Another dragon did dive down, but of course Cold One Spear Riders are perfectly designed to deal with a nasty Forest Dragon. Here, the Chameleon Skinks do get run down by the Wild Riders, but I use an Overcast Flock of Doom to do a ton of damage to them. They rear charge into my Cold One Riders as he's trying to get his dragon out, and at this point we're just unleashing everything we have on both sides. 10-1 is still doing nice and fine, while in the back line, my Chameleon Skinks and my Cold One Riders are completely overwhelming the Lord and the Dragon. I've also gotten onto the Spellsinger of Life, so I should be able to shut down his magic very quickly here in a few seconds. So with that offline, I have the Thunderous one turn on range mode, and he's basically just pew-pewing the heck out of the Forest Dragon, even if along with the Chameleon Skinks aid. Meanwhile, in the back line, I'm slowly starting to get overwhelmed by the Way Watchers on the far flank. I do need to be careful, and I start pulling 10-1 back. Managed to dodge that noxious breath from or poisonous breath from the Glade Lord there, just barely. Get another Overcast Flock of Doom, which of course does give me a ward save, 22% ward save whenever I cast magic, thanks to the Plaque of Chakwa. But one of the dragons dives down on me, and I start taking pretty significant damage. An arrow comes down, but unfortunately it friendly fires since I'm hiding beneath the dragon. and ends up doing damage to the dragon, not me. And things are looking pretty dire in this little pocket, but in comes the Thunderous One, bringing in terror and support as he's going to be dropping lightning bolts in a few seconds. Meanwhile, my Cold Riders and Skinks are chasing off all of the fleeing and broken units. And here I do manage to get Tenderwan away from the dragon. The lightning bolts are coming down, and the Cold Ones are charging into the Wild Riders and the dragons into the rear, doing our absolute best to bring them down. Meanwhile, in this far flank, the Way Watchers have managed to overwhelm my Cold Riders with the support of some Dryads. We see a charge coming in from the Wild Riders, who do have silver shields, so they actually mitigate a fair amount of damage. But it's not going to be enough. They will be able to catch my Chameleon Skinks, but of course they are taking consistent poison damage. Over here, we are pursuing the Glade Lord very, very nicely. Unfortunately, he does get off a Prey of Anathrema, which thankfully there's no shooting around to take advantage of the minus 22% missile resistance because the Way Watchers are occupied on other targets, but it does allow the Glade Lord to get back up in the air. So now, both dragons are pretty low, and I do have a pretty serious contingent of troops running around, very mobile troops. Here, the Wild Riders get into battle against my Cold Riders, and the Wild Riders are a rank 9 unit, so they do have very, very good stats, but there's very, very few of them left. They are going to need the dragon support if they're going to stand any chance against me, and it looks like he's going in for a breath over there, which is going to do quite a bit of damage, but it causes some friendly fire, which also causes them to shatter. And with that, thanks to the constant fire the Glade Lord's taking, that's going to cause enough leadership damage to end the battle. So, thanks to Crumb Schnitzel for both games. You will be seeing him probably a fair bit on the channel. Of course, he'll be participating in tomorrow's tabletop tourney. He's already signed up. So I hope y'all look forward to seeing him there. I hope to see the people who watch the Tuesday-Thursday series rooting for him. But as far as the overall battle goes, kind of what I told him, because he was practicing for a tournament, so that was the main purpose of the practice game. His list, I think the only thing that really damned him in the end was that he did not have enough anti-large. Because of the double dragons, if you go double dragon, you have to be super efficient at having them hit the right place at the right time and making sure their dragon breaths aren't wasted. There were a couple times where dragon breaths either didn't hit their marks accordingly, or they got interrupted, or they even hit friendly units. And one of the things that I tell people about Dragon Breath in particular that may not necessarily be super well known is that Dragon Breath is best used when it comes in at an angle parallel to the unit. So like if the unit is stretched out long ways, you want to fly to their flank and breathe fire on them. If they're narrow, then you want to fly from forward or behind them and hit them. But contrary to appearances, because when a lot of people think Dragon Breath, they think of the dragon coming like right over top and breathing down. That's not how you want to use dragons. You always want to position dragons pretty much at their maximum range and then breathe fire across a group of enemy units, because the thing about Fire Breath is it does a ton of damage, but if you are hovering directly over, they're only going to focus a really specific part of the unit, which means that you're going to lose a lot of the value, which is a lot of how Crumb's Dragon Breath ended up going off, which ended up costing him a lot of value than if he had waited for my Cav units to get engaged, for instance, against some Dryads or the Wild Riders, and he had breathed sideways to hit the Cold Riders, making sure and the thing about shooting parallel to them is you want to make sure that you're directly parallel so it doesn't like diagonal. You don't want to shoot over your own guys because you risk hitting them, especially if it's a valuable unit like Wild Riders. You know, if you're shooting over like Eternal Guard or Dryads, it doesn't matter as much. But beyond that, ultimately the thing that I noted was that he just didn't have enough anti-large. At the end of the day, he didn't realistically have a way to kill the Thunderous One. Like, he brought the Glade Lord with bow and arrow, which I actually think he would have been way better off bringing the male Glade Lord. If you're going to run a melee build, you want to bring the male... And when I say melee build, I mean there's only one unit of shooting in this entire army. If that's what's happening, then you want to bring the male Glade Lord. The only reason a female Glade Lord would work in this build is maybe if you were trying to synergize the Prey of Anathrema and then use like double... What you can do is use like the Prey of Anathrema to lock down a character, giving them that minus 22 missile resistance and making them unable to move, and then hit them with 2 Dragon Breaths immediately. that will nearly instantly kill most characters because it will cause their missile resistance to go negative, so they will take oodles and oodles of damage. Especially if they're like mounted on like a cold one or a horse or like that, like a cav-sized mount, because they're not going to have the largest amount of health, so they will take stupid amounts of damage. But ultimately, for Crumbed, I think it would have been better to cut the second dragon and just take way more anti-large. Because, like, looking at this build, he just realistically did not have a way to deal with the Thunderous one. The only way he could have killed the Thunderous one is for both dragons to have committed to melee, and even then, it would have been really, really difficult. Other than that, if you have a very narrow army like this with a Life Wizard, honestly, you're probably better off... You want to make sure the Life Wizard stays very, very mobile. Otherwise, they'll get caught super early like this one did. She barely had time to get off any meaningful magic because there wasn't anybody to heal before she got caught, because the Dryads just kind of got ran over, and the Wild Riders were unfortunately deployed so far to the flanks that it just took them too long to get where they needed to be in order to protect her or heal. Especially the Wild Riders of Kurnos, they're rank 9, which makes their stats really nice, but their kind of big thing is they've got the Guardian aura. So you want to make sure that they're bodyguards, like they're running around with a character, like a Spellsinger or following around a Dragon Lord. But like Felcon, for instance, if you want to like play Wood Elves and you don't want to play like cheesy lists that have like a bunch of Way Watchers, but you want to still you want to like play a melee list, but you want to challenge yourself. What Felcon did with a number of builds is he would run a male Glade Lord on a horse, backed up by a bunch of Wild Riders, and just use them as like an elite steamroller, and it actually worked really, really well. There are ways to run that list, like essentially an all-cav Wood Elf list. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll be back next Tuesday, of course, with more multiplayer matches. I've got people actually submitting games on the Discord now, so I'll be looking at some of those. If you want to maybe get your game featured, feel free to submit them on there. If you can, try and make sure they're like at least 7 to 8 minutes long. So, you know, don't send me a battle that just somebody gets steamrolled in like 3 minutes. You know, make sure it's a good fight. In any event, thank you guys for watching. See you later today for all sorts of news. Till then, bye.